Alright, let's learn how to solve linear equations in one variable. So here's our example. We're going to solve the equation 2x minus 5 equals negative 13. And the goal is to get x all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That gives me 2x equals negative 8. And I'm going to divide by 2. And so 1x equals negative 4. And that is our answer. And here's our definition of a linear equation. A linear equation, one variable x, can be written in the form of a times x plus some number b equals 0. We can always reduce it to that form. And linear equations always have degree 1. That means the exponent of x is always going to be 1. Now, of course, linear equations can be more complicated than the one we just worked out. So let's look at this one. Notice I've got a minus outside this parenthesis, so I'm going to distribute it. So I've got 5x minus 7x, and then minus a negative 4 is plus 4. Then I've got that minus 2. Now I'm going to distribute this negative right here. So it's 5 minus 3x minus 2. Now let's combine all the x's that we can. So this is negative 2x, and 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. And let's get all the x's on the left. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. And that gives me 1x plus 2 equals 3. We're almost there. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So x equals 1. What happens if we have fractions? Well, don't worry. We're just going to get rid of them in one step by multiplying everything on both sides of the equation by the lowest common denominator. So the lowest common denominator of 2 and 4 is 4. So I'm going to multiply 4 times everything on the left side and 4 times everything on the right side. Here we go. 4 times 1/2 p is 2p, and 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. 4 times 3/4 p, the 4's cancel, and I get 3p. And I can subtract 2p from both sides, and I get negative 20 equals p. That's it. Remember, the goal is to get the variable all by itself on one side of the equation. Okay, so here's a new twist. Now we have the variable in the denominator. All right, so let's look at what all our denominators are. We've got a 3x, we've got a 2, we've got an x, and a 3. So our lowest common denominator, we'll take one of each factor. So I'm going to have a 3 and an x. I said 3 and I wrote 2, didn't I? We're going to have a 3 and an x and a 2. And that'll take care of all our different factors. So our lowest common denominator will be 6x. That means I'm going to multiply everything on the left by 6x and everything on the right by 6x. So 6x times 2 over 3x. Okay, 3x goes into 6x 2 times. And 6x times 1/2 is 3x. Over here, x goes into 6x 6 times. And 4 over 3 times 6x, well, 3 goes into 6x 2x times. And I have that times that 4 right there. All right, so where are we? I've got 4 plus 3x equals 24 plus 8x. Let's subtract 3x from both sides. And I get 4 equals 24 plus 5x. And let's subtract 24 from both sides. And I get negative 20 equals 5x. So dividing by 5, negative 4 equals x. Now I need to make sure that that answer will work, because up here I can never let the denominator of a fraction be 0, and so up here x cannot be 0. But it's okay if x is negative 4, because that will not make any of our denominators 0. So our answer is okay. We can use negative 4. Okay, how about this one? Well, it looks like our LCD is x minus 1. And it looks like our domain is x cannot be positive 1. Why? Because I don't want x minus 1 to be 0. So that means that x cannot be 1. Alright, here we go. We're going to multiply everything by x minus 1. So I have x minus 1 times the left side of our equation and x minus 1 times the right side of our equation. When I distribute, x minus 1 over x minus 1 cancels, and I get 3x. X minus 1 times 2 is just 2 times x minus 1. Here the x minus 1's cancel, and all I have is 3. Let's distribute that 2. Combine our x terms. Add 2 to both sides. 5x equals 3. No, 5x equals 5, right? Because I've just added 2. So x equals 1. Well, we've got a problem because what did we figure out at the beginning? We figured out that x cannot be 1. So what does that mean? It means there is no solution to this equation. Okay, now this looks kind of complicated. Let's look at all of our denominators in factored form. So my first denominator is going to be 3 times x plus 6. Our second one is going to be 2 times x plus 6. And our third one is going to be x times x plus 6. So how many different factors do we have? Well, we've got a 3. We've got an x plus 6. We've got a 2. And we've got an x. So that is our LCD. LCD is 6x times x plus 6. And that means that x cannot be negative 6. Otherwise, these denominators would all go to 0. And we don't want that to happen. So let's keep that in mind as we solve, okay? All right, here we go. I'm going to multiply 6x times x plus 6 times the entire left side and 6x times x plus 6 times the entire right side. And let's see what happens. Okay, so 3 goes into 6 2 times. I've got that x right there, and the x plus 6 is canceled, so I have 2x times 1. Minus. Okay, 2 goes into 6x 3x times, and the x plus 6 is canceled, so that's it. Over here, the x's cancel, and I still have a 6 right there, and the x plus 6's cancel. So that's all I have is 6. All right, so 2x minus 3x is negative x equals 6. Therefore, x equals negative 6. But what did we figure out earlier? X cannot equal negative 6 because it would make each one of these denominators go to 0. So once again, we have no solution. Okay, here's our last example. And x cannot be 3 because that would make this denominator 0. And x cannot be 2 because that would make this denominator 0. Okay, now when I have one fraction on the left and one fraction on the right, I can cross multiply. That means this goes up top and that goes up top over there. Ready? 2 times 2 minus x equals negative 3 times x minus 3. So I get 4 minus 2x equals negative 3x plus 9. And let's add 2x to both sides. And I get 4 equals negative x plus 9. And let's subtract 9. Negative 5 equals negative x. So x equals 5. And that is okay. We just can't let x equal 2 or 3. 5 is perfectly acceptable, so that's our answer.